let's look at Ross chapter 10.6. And this is what he has called the sign of the accusative. Now remember, Hebrew does not technically have a case system where you change the endings on nouns to indicate whether they're the subject or the direct object or anything like that. There is not a case system in Hebrew. Hebrew used to have a case system, but it's fallen out of use, just like in English. English used to have a case system, and praise God, it fell out, except for the pronouns. So we don't have to worry about that. So same in Hebrew. But when we talk about the accusative, frequently, accusative is referring to the direct object function. All right? We will learn as we go on in Hebrew that at other times, the accusative function is not the direct object function. But in all cases, the most fundamental idea of the accusative is that a noun that is functioning accusatively is that it limits the verbal action in some way. That's what an accusative noun does. It limits the verbal action. So, if I said something like, I bit the dog, okay, and if the dog is accusative in function, that is limiting the action of biting, isn't it? It's not that I bit everything in front of me. The biting has been limited to one object, and that's the dog. I bit the dog. So accusative function limits the verbal action. In which ways? Sometimes as the direct object. Sometimes I could say something like, I went home, and their home is accusative in function, but that's not the direct object because the verb to go is not transitive. It doesn't take a direct object. This accusative idea is not direct object accusative, but it's an adverbial accusative idea. It's telling you where I went. I went home. All right. Now, we're going to focus on direct object kind of accusatives here in this little section. And in Hebrew, we have this little particle. And it can be spelled one of two ways. It can be spelled eighth with a sere here, or et with a makef. Now let's just remind ourselves about something. When we attach a word to another word with makef, so makef's going to come right after et, and then there'll be another word here. What happens to the stress of the word eighth when I add the makef to it? It loses its stress. If I were to take this first form, eighth with the sere, is this open or closed syllable? It's closed. Is it tonic, pretonic, proprotonic, or posttonic? It's tonic. Okay, good. If I took et or eighth and added a makef and put it after the word, let's just say melech. Okay, use a good common word here, melech. This tone is here on the meh of melech, right? So is et open or closed? It's closed. Is it tonic anymore? No. It surrenders its stress to the next word's stress, and that means here it's what? Pretonic, because the next syllable is tonic. Can anyone explain why the sere has become a segol here in this context? That's right. Et with the makef is now closed and unaccented, and my cuss rule says what? Closed, say it with me. Closed, unaccented syllables require a short vowel. Is sere long or short? It's long. But when it becomes closed and unaccented, it's got to become short. Remember our historical vowel chart? Sere is up in the tone long slot, and when I drop down to tone short, what are my choices for a sere, for a short I-class vowel? Segol or Keurig, right? And here it takes a segol. All right? It takes a segol. Okay, so that's how we write this sign of the accusative that's marking direct objects. But the other thing we need to know about this little particle is this. We need to know when it can be used. So there's a requirement for using it. Okay. So first of all, it's used, number one, before a noun that is a direct object. Okay? But secondly, that direct object must be what? It must be definite. It must be definite. If I have a direct object that is not definite, I do not use the particle ate in front of it. All right? So it's only direct objects that are definite. So let's take an example here. I could say something like shafat. This is a word that's used for our example here, shafat. That means he judged. My subject is ha-ish. How would I translate that? Shafat ha-ish. The man judged. Remember, typically we have verb followed by subject. And now, let me just do this. Let me just write ha-am. Okay? Let me write and then let me write et ha-am. Okay, how would I translate this first sentence? Just assume this is all being repeated. Shafat ha-ish ha-am. Well, it's not accused. The man judged. Okay. This is going to be the same in all three cases, right? The man judged. And what did he judge? Okay, it's he judged the people. All right. Did I have a direct object marker or a sign of the accusative in front of ha'am? Would this be appropriate Hebrew? The answer is yes. Okay? That is to say, this direct object marker or sign of the accusative that we're talking about, it frequently occurs in front of the direct object that is definite, but it doesn't absolutely have to be there. And the direct object can still be a definite direct object. Okay? So I would still translate this as a direct object. The man judged ha'am, the people. Now, look at this next one. I have shafat ha'ish, and now I have just am. How would I translate that? The man judged a people. Is the word am definite? No. Would I see the sign of the accusative in front of it? No. And so even though it is a direct object, it's not definite. I can't put the sign of the accusative. Okay? It still is a direct object, though. But I can only use the et in front of a direct object that is what? Definite. Good. And then last I have shafat ha'ish et ha'am. How would I translate that? The man judged the people. Okay, good. So here the particle ate is present. Did you notice that I didn't translate it? Okay. When you have a sign of the accusative, ate or et, it's signaling to you, yo, I'm a definite direct object. Definitely. But don't translate me. So you're just going to skip past it. You just need to make a mental note. Definite direct object coming ahead, and then translate your direct object, but don't try to translate et. Okay? It is purely a function word. Okay? It marks the accusative function, but you don't have to translate it with any sort of semantics. Okay? Does that make sense? He gives you Genesis 1:1. Look at the top of page 91. Repeat after me. Bara Elohim.
Bara Elohim.
God created. Good. Does the verb create require a direct object? Would you expect a direct object after create? Yes. And so notice that in Hebrew we have two et noun phrases that are the direct objects of God created. Say this with me. Et hashamayim.
Et hashamayim.
Ve'et haaretz.
Ve'et haaretz.
Notice that you don't translate eighth in either case, do you? But they are marking direct objects that are what? Definite. And do you see an article on these? Yes. And that article renders it definite. So let me just spell out real quickly. There's really three ways to indicate or to know that something is definite, a noun is definite. The first way and the easiest way is if there's an article attached to it. The man, the heavens, the earth. Okay? So if you have an article, it's definite. But sometimes you might have a noun that's not articular, doesn't have an article, but it's still definite by virtue of being a proper noun. A proper noun is a definitive thing, right? A bridge is any old bridge, but the Golden Gate Bridge is a specific bridge. And so whenever you see a proper noun, it'll be capitalized in English. That's definite. And would I put a direct object marker or a sign of the accusative in front of it if I said something like, they blew up the Golden Gate Bridge? Yes. I would see 8 in front of Golden Gate Bridge, however you say that in Hebrew. And then last, if there is a possessive pronoun, and we don't know our pronouns yet, but if you have a possessive pronoun on a noun in Hebrew, that will also make it definite. So if I had said something like, he murdered his uncle, that's not any old uncle, is it? That is a specific uncle. And that would take the sign of the accusative because that direct object is a definitive uncle. All right? Okay. Very good. Any questions about this?
If you saw it before HH, does that happen? Would you still know that it's the man judge because of the end?
Yes. Even if you had et ha'am in front of the verb, you would still know that it can't be the subject because et marks the object when it's definite. Exactly. Okay. Great. With 10.7, all Ross is wanting to help you think through is which way you're going to see your verb your not your verb patterns, but your sentence patterns in terms of the order of the constituents. And very frequently, okay, I'm going to put it in English order. It's going to go verb, subject, object. Okay? But remember, in Hebrew, we're reading from right to left. So we're going to expect verb from the right to the left, subject after the verb, and then object after that. So when you see the et will usually be after the verb and subject, okay? But as Kyle has mentioned just a second ago, sometimes the object can be placed in front of the verb, but that et will help you identify it as the direct object, even though it's sort of out of place. And when the object is fronted before the verb, it's usually because the writer is trying to give some prominence to it. For example, in Deuteronomy, you have this string of direct object markers that is used on nouns in front of the verb because Yahweh is instructing Israel that it's Yahweh and Yahweh alone that they are to worship. So it'll say things like, the Lord you shall serve. In his name you shall swear. Him should you fear, and so forth. And that direct object is placed in front of the verb to say him and no one else. Okay. It's what's called contrastive focus. All right, so this is the way you're usually going to see your sentences. Now, we can negate verbs in Hebrew. That is to say, we don't just have to say he did this, but we can say he didn't do this. Okay? So what does pakad mean? To appoint or to visit. So if I said pakad et Hamelech, how would I translate that? He appointed or visited the king. Why did you not say the king appointed or visited? Because 8 marks what? The direct object. If the direct object is what? Definite. Yes, and is that definite? Yeah, I have the article in front of it. That makes it definite. Okay, so he appointed or he visited the king. Now, what if I wanted to say he didn't appoint or visit the king? What do I do? Yes, we use a little negative particle called lo, and it's going to be spelled usually this way. Lamed, Holam, Aleph, lo. It can be spelled this way with a Holam Vav, and you remember the difference between a Holam Vav and a Holam is a spelling difference. What do we call the one without the mater? This one over here? Yes, it can be defectively spelled, right? We call that the defective spelling. The spelling without the mater, but with the vowel, is the defective spelling. If it has the mater and the vowel point, it is spelled fully, and we call that the full spelling. Or sometimes we call it plene, the plene spelling. Okay, which one is more frequent? The form with the defective spelling. I just want you to be aware. You could see them both. Okay, so if we put lo in front of it, that aleph is quiescent. You can't hear it, and that means the dagesh lene in the pei is going to do what? It's going to get blown away by the vowel right before it. What am I saying? Before it. So we would pronounce this as lo fakad et Hamelech. So how would we translate lo fakad et Hamelech? He did not visit or appoint the king. Okay? So put lo right in front of the verb you're negating. That's all there is to it. Easy to do. So let's look at these examples on page 91. We'll go to the middle section. Okay, so page 91, the middle section. You did not keep the law. Repeat after me. Lo shamarta et ha-Torah. So you did not keep lo shamarta. You see the ta is you, masculine singular, right? Shamar is the verb. Shamarta, personal ending you. So without the lo, shamarta, you would translate how? Shamarta, you kept. You kept. It would be positive, right? You kept. Lo shamarta, yeah, you have to use did not. You have to switch to a form of do or did with the as an auxiliary verb. You did not keep. We can't say in English you not kept, right? Shamarta, you kept. Lo shamarta is you not kept, right? How do you say you not kept? Well, it's you didn't keep. Or you could say you kept not, but then you would sound really snooty, right? You kept not the law. All right, and then down at the bottom, he mentions that whenever you have verbs, the subject is going to dictate the gender and number of the verb. And also, if it's an explicit subject, it'll be third person. So we're going to see third person forms with that gender and number. And if there's not a subject, then you use the pronominal subject that you get from the inflectional ending. He, she, it, they, you, I, and so forth. Okay? So, look at this example and repeat after me the first one. Yarada ha'isha lanahar. Say that. Yarada ha'isha lanahar. How would we translate that? The woman went down, or the woman descended, lanahar, to the river. How would I translate it if it was just Yarada lanahar? How would you translate that?
She went down the river.
Yes, you would translate it as she went down to the river. In other words, you'd have to use the pronoun she here, wouldn't you? All right, look at the next. We have Halahu. Everybody say that.
Halahu.
Ha'anashim
Anashim.
la'ir.
La'ir.
So the men went la'ir to the city. How would I translate this if it was just Halahu la'ir? Yes, you have to use the pronoun. They went to the city. And then everybody, Zacharu et Adonai.
Zacharu et Adonai.
So there is no overt explicit subject here. So you have to use the pronoun embedded in the inflectional ending, third common plural, they. Right? So they remembered. Do we translate the 8 here? No. You just go straight to the noun that it's prefixed to or whatever it goes right before. They remembered the Lord. They remembered Yahweh. All right? So that's your verb forms and how they work in sentences.